Hi and welcome to this screencast on testing your code. Today I'm going to talk about how you use assertions and how you can test a function using a unit test. An assert statement is a little line of code that checks if some condition is true. If the condition is true, the assert statement does nothing, and if the condition is not true, the assert statement will halt your program and stop. And this is quite useful for making sure that an input or an output is as you would expect it to be. So you can use assert statements to check that some conditions are true and make sure that your program will stop if these are not true. Let's say I have a small program where I define a variable x, set that equal to 7. And next I define a variable y and set that equal to x squared. Now, no matter what value x takes, y will always be a positive number or a non-negative number. It cannot be negative. And I could make sure of that by making an assert statement that says assert y is greater than or equal to 0. Now if I run this code, we can see that x gets created, has the value 7, y has the value 49, and the assert statement does nothing. That should be the case no matter what value x takes. For example, x could be 0, I run the code, and now x is 0 and y is 0. So but what would happen if x has the value of a complex number, for example 2 times 1j, which is the complex variable? Now when I run the code, we can see that x gets the value 2 times j, y now gets the value negative 4, and because that's not a non-negative number, the assert statement will fail and give me this error message. Now you can use these assert statements inside your code to check that certain conditions are met as your code runs and to make sure that the program will halt if some condition is not met. Another way that you can use assert statements is to create what's called a unit test. So in a unit test you test a unit of code, which is usually a single function, and the way you would do it is you would create your function and then in a separate script you would create a number of tests that call your function and make sure that the input and output are correct. Now let me show you how you can do that. Now let's say I create a small simple function that simply squares its input arguments and returns that as an output. I'll call the function square me. Now I've defined my function here. I can run it over here, and now I can simply run it and test it manually by calling it square me of 2, for example. That returns the value of 4. Now if I want to test my function more thoroughly, I can create a separate test script with my unit tests, and in here I could write a number of assert statements that simply make sure that square me returns the right result for different inputs. So I could write assert square me of 2 is equal to 4, assert square me of 3 is equal to 9, and assert square me of 0 is equal to 0, for example. Now when I run this code, I can see that nothing happens because all the tests pass. Now if I go back and to the function and make a little mistake here, for example I could have an extra minus sign here. Now when I run my unit tests, we can see that 2 of the assertions will fail here in this case. And looking at the assertions that fail can make me go back and examine my function again and helps me find my bug. And this is very useful for when you change a function, you update something, you can then again run your unit test and make sure that it still works correctly. So now when I fix the bug and I run the tests again, they all pass, so nothing happens.